Judicial Watch filed a federal lawsuit seeking to force the CIA to disclose any involvement in the January 6th Capitol riot. Here to break this all down with us is Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. So, Tom, thanks for joining us today. Let's start with the beginning. Why did you guys file this lawsuit, and where do you want it to go?
Well, we had gotten documents not too long ago, surprisingly, frankly, showing that the CIA had teams there who were responding, if I recall correctly, to the alleged pipe bombs found near the RNC and DNC, and they had other folks on standby. This was astonishing news to us. We didn't know the CIA had operators deployed on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. And I'm sure it's a surprise to Americans that the CIA was conducting law enforcement activities here in America. And so we followed up with a comprehensive FOIA request for records about what the CIA was doing at the Capitol on January 6th. We got the proverbial hand to the face, so we've sued in federal court for the records.
Well, obviously, CIA is not supposed to be running around doing here what it's supposed to do overseas. But on the other hand, at the time, I had the feeling of like any intelligence agency in the world that doesn't have at least one guy sort of hanging around a lamppost, keeping an eye on what's going on, probably the head of that agency deserves to be fired. So not all that surprising to find out CIA is involved, but, they can't be too happy about disclosing any of this information. They're always notoriously tight-lipped. What if they just don't reply?
Well, they have to respond, and that's the wonderful thing about the FOIA law and the American system, the legal system. We go into court, and the CIA now has a month or two to respond to our lawsuit, and they have to tell court what documents they have, or if they don't even want to look for the documents, what would be the basis for that, which is an argument the CIA likes to use. We can't even tell you if we have documents one way or the other. But to me, this is more of a straightforward request. It doesn't talk about foreign intelligence and things like that. Obviously, we're not going to get, the keys to the kingdom in that regard. But law enforcement personnel working for the CIA on the ground on January 6th, certainly that ought to be disclosable or disclosed to the American people, the details of that.
You're looking for details of 6 different areas involved in your lawsuit. Can you go into just some of the details that you're looking for?
Oh, you're going to have them in front of you, and I don't have them in front of me.
There are shots fired inside the Capitol, a person shot inside the Capitol, requests for CIA support or assistance to the Capitol, bomb technicians, and accelerating or explosive canine devices, and any after-action reports about January 6th events in Washington, D.C. So why are all of those different areas mentioned?
Because those are the areas that we think the CIA was likely to be involved in, and given the prior documents we have, certainly with the explosive devices that were found, that was really specific to the CIA. And after-action reports, that's the sort of document that's created by law enforcement when they're involved in situations such as the January 6th disturbances. So all of this is basic information that would be provided by any other law enforcement agency or any other federal law enforcement agency. And again, I'm still scratching my head why we're even using or talking about the CIA in the context of domestic law enforcement activity.
As you know, Tom, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt in and around D.C. these days about that pipe bomb that was allegedly discovered. We're still, kind of trying to unravel that one. Do you think that that has any bearing on the kinds of documents that the CIA might have to furnish if indeed they're going to do so?
Well, it might be providing an excuse for them to not provide documents. The government likes to, if there's something is ongoing, they haven't figured out allegedly what happened yet, they pretend that documents about the response to the investigation and the investigation of it should be withheld from the public. In my view, these are documents that are aside from the ongoing investigation. And I tell you, if the CIA is involved in the ongoing investigation, boy, would that be news.
You said that they have about a month or so to respond. What are going to be the next legal steps in this case?
Well, typically the government will give the court reasons as to either a timeline to give us documents and explain the withholdings. Or in the case of the CIA, sometimes they say we can't give them any documents at all or tell them one way or the other whether we have documents. So it's going to be interesting to see if they admit to having any documents, and then subsequently what the timeline for reviewing those documents and producing the releasable portions of which they should be producing to Judicial Watch. I'm going to
let you speculate here if you want, or at least make a little inference. DC, famous for its turf wars, the intelligence community no exception. If CIA was poking around down there, what other agencies or bureaus do you think were in the mix on that day?
Well, we know Homeland Security was through the Secret Service. We know the DC police were. The FBI has confessed to having people there on January 6th. We're suing separately, I know, for the DC police body cams. And then, of course, we still have the U.S. Capitol Police, another federal law enforcement agency that really doesn't have some of the basic transparency requirements most other federal and local and state law enforcement agencies do. For example, I mean, they still have emails they're sitting on from that day between the Capitol Police and the board that runs security there in the Capitol, and House and Senate and House members and senators. What's in those emails? So the question is, which agencies weren't involved? You have the Department of Interior, the Park Service. You would have thought there'd be a comprehensive investigation of all of that by the January 6th committee, but that was a rump committee designed to destroy Trump and scare anyone from questioning Biden's election. So they weren't interested in that much at all.
Tom, my last question for you is, we are almost up to the next election, and yet we are still trying to go back and figure out everything that's happening on January 6th, and people are still getting arrested. We're still trying to get all of these answers. We know government is notoriously slow at everything that they do, but why are we still waiting for answers from something that happened so long ago?
Well, the first answer is usually the best one. They're just slow. The second answer, it's politics. They don't want the documents to come out. Otherwise, we would have gotten them. The fact that they ignored the request completely illustrates that the CIA thinks they're above the law. And if I were the next president, the next honest president, I would go on a transparency tear and require all the agencies to disclose all this information and other information that the American people have been agitating now for years.